This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
Today on Leap Forward, we're joined by Catalina Schwenninger, a veteran leader in the future of work and talent. With over 30 years of experience, Catalina pulls no punches on AI's dramatic disruption of the workforce. She argues for the urgent need to redesign jobs with transparency, champions the return of the critical thinking generalist, and warns of the dangers of becoming lazy with AI. Get ready to rethink everything you know about your career. So I'm really delighted to welcome Kat to this episode of Leap Forward. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's absolutely a pleasure to see you after all this time.
Absolutely right. And it's a beautiful time in London in June. Couldn't ask for a better day. So look, let's kick things off. Tell me a little bit about sort of who you are, what you do, and what's led you to this point.
Wow, that's a big question. Where shall I start? I sort of wear different hats
Yep.
right now. I'm part HR consultant and part angel investor, part educator in the future of work. But where I started really, like everybody who has no idea what to do when they graduate, I started being a headhunter. And then I sort of grew up in communist Romania, so little did I know what HR meant back in the days or what an angel investor meant. I thought angels were the ones that the nuns were talking about at, a nursery. So I didn't really plan my career to be in HR, but I sort of bumped into HR and stuck there for like 25 years in different corporate
How
roles.
did that happen?
It's really funny you should ask. I was on a flight to London from
Yep.
Bucharest, where I was born, and I sat next to this guy who turned out to be a very successful entrepreneur who had started a recruitment franchise out of London and moving into Eastern Europe, just like the change was happening in the part of the world. And he was like, "Oh, you seem kind of switched on, did a bit of sales in uni, speak a couple of languages. Would you like to work with me and be a headhunter?" And not knowing what I was signing up for, but being lured by the fact that there was a 1 week training sort of onboarding in London, I said yes. So, and I never looked back, right? So I did a couple of years of headhunting and then I worked in corporate HR. And that's at some point I met you when I was Chief People Officer FutureLearn, which was sort of my first foray into startups.
That's right. It was. And before you did that, you were also just skipped through an amazingly big role at Vodafone.
Yeah, actually, Vodafone brought me here to sunny London to lead first their recruitment, globally, and then I moved into being their sort of chief learning officer back then. And then, yes, indeed, and actually, in the last stint at Vodafone, which was one of these kind of cool companies back then.
Yeah.
Very few people knew that they were the quintessential sort of tech startup out of, made in Britain. But we were very much into, experimenting with startups and investing into new technology. And that's how I sort of bump into HR tech and ed tech. And then I heard about FutureLearn and kind of jumped ship from listed corporate to sort of agile, small, startups with big ambitions.
I mean, and I'm thinking of this in terms of just all of these different kind of segments of the cheese, right? You've kind of got so many people I meet these days who are successful have started life in a similar way, which is, seized opportunities like you have, or they've even been recruiters, right? That recruitment, kind of that executive search thing, I think that gives you a fundamental sort of perspective, discipline, perspective on kind of like fit and then you've gone corporate, then you've gone startup, like you're starting to get fully rounded.
I should hope so. I think I have what they call a squiggly career, right?
Yeah.
I didn't really have a master plan. Obviously, now I sort of advise young people on their career plan. I'm thinking maybe you shouldn't take advice from me because I wasn't really good at planning. I went with the flow, but I always went for opportunities first and foremost to work for great people. That was sort of my compass. And indeed, as a recruiter, actually, you're learning to sell, to close, right? It's a sales pitch, but then you also learn to assess, to interview, which are really good skills to have, I think, in any job, right? It's a great generalist role that gives you range, right?
Yeah.
That, again, if you're a bit confused, don't know what to do with your career, I think it's a good place to start.
Catching up to now then. So here we are, 2025. Kind of give me a sense of like your perspective. Where are we in the market? What are you seeing in terms of trends, challenges, opportunities? Give me a sense of kind of your perspective right now.
I think without sounding too dramatic,
Yeah.
I've had a 30 plus years career, and I think this is the most dramatic times where we are experimenting, because obviously AI is there to stay and is disrupting work more than anyone had anticipated, or maybe faster
Hmm.
than we anticipated. So yeah, the fact that I'm an investor in the future of work is sort of, I'm right there where it's happening, right? And it's both scary and also thrilling,
Hmm.
right? It is scary because, yeah, we're having kids, in
Yeah.
higher education, university. They're going to graduate with a huge amount of debt, and their roles, the roles they sign up for, will not exist in a couple of years, and a lot of white collar roles are being affected, right? So we're being in this kind of moment of inflection where we don't know which way it's going, but it also presents a lot of opportunities, right? Of actually going back and doing proper human jobs, helping the elderly, coaching young kids, right? Doing manual work, right? So it's sort of unpacking new opportunities, and tech, yes, is still hot and is still sexy. But I think now this moment is going to be very, very crucial in terms of how the world of work is looking in the next couple of years. So yeah, again, never experienced that.
Hmm.
I wake up every morning with a bit of a panic attack,
Hmm.
thinking, you know, what's the future of work going to be like in a couple of years? But at the same time, lots of exciting opportunities and a lot of exciting startups that will sort of shape this future of work that I get to work with.
So look, I'm so excited about this conversation, and you've given me lots of food for thought just in that answer. So let me just sort of zero in on one thing that you've talked about a little bit already, which is around young people, right? So what sort of advice, when you say mentoring, and what sort of advice are you kind of giving to young people today?
Think you introduced me to this amazing charity, 1 Million Mentors, right? So we are sort of matched with kids who are still in education, right? And I'm just finishing a year of mentorship with a brilliant young man who's studying to become an electrician, right? So my conversations with him are, look, yes, you found your superpower and something you're passionate about, which is great. As humans, we are motivated to learn something if we like it, right? If we get excited about it. Otherwise, it's really hard to learn something from scratch. But at the same time, yeah, build a deep expertise and build something that you are world's best in, like, electrician. But at the same time, build range. So don't stop reading stuff that you're not interested in, right? We're having a discussion about how hard is physics and, electrics and stuff. But continue to read history or continue to read maths, right? Because we want people that will connect the dots in the future, right? And will have a range of skills. Because also, as Professor Grattan says, right, we live 100 years, so we'll have to reinvent ourselves 4 or 5 times around, right? So yes, you want to build a skill that has a market value, where you can go in the market and actually get a job right from college. But at the same time, you have to have your kind of options open, right? So don't stop there. Become the best that you can be in one specialism, but also build that range. And yeah, it's hard because obviously you get busy and you have a 9 to 5 job and you want to have a life, but continuing to kind of update yourself and read magazines, whatever, books, get mentors from different domains will help you build that range. And yeah, we were just chatting earlier that, again, I think manual work has been sort of, a Cinderella professions. Now it's becoming hugely important, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of kids are finishing uni and are working in pubs because they can't get like engineer jobs.
I was on the phone to a VC in San Francisco, and his son basically was getting advice from his dad, and his dad said, "Go and become an electrician," and that's a VC, And like you said, I think kind of there's also been this sort of almost kind of like looking down on some of those kind of jobs,
Exactly.
right? Over a period of time. and suddenly, these roles, these jobs, these skills are now kind of significantly kind of increasing in value, and commanding perhaps, the attention and respect that they should have had all this time, right? But
Exactly.
we're re-looking at everything, aren't we, at the moment? I think that's exciting. It's scary at the same time, I suppose, in a sense.
Yeah, I think it's a moment of unbundling work into what exactly means, what are the tasks and the skills you need, and looking at professions differently beyond the job description, right? And a bunch of kind of BS that we used to sort of, define work based on. So it is quite exciting from that perspective. Is much more, tangible and real.
Let's look at the sort of the side of your life which is around sort of future of work kind of investment. Tell me, as you said, I mean, you've been every side of the coin, right? You've been a kind of a founder of a startup. You've kind of been, a purchaser of these products. You've been a user of them. You've been every side, right? And so, to your HR tech point sort of earlier, kind of what's your kind of thesis? What do you, on the glass half full, more excitement side, what's getting you excited? What's your thesis around that at the moment?
So look, I'm really fortunate because I work both with Emerge Education, which I
Yeah.
think Nick Newman. We're really kind of looking to bridge that gap of $2 or $3 trillion, depending who you're asking, in terms of the future of work and skills, and the fact that people will need to be reskilled in this generation. And also, I'm lucky enough to be part of a syndicate called Hermesa, who's focusing on female co-founding businesses. And there I look broader than edtech, but obviously edtech is sort of my playfield.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
my superpower.
Superpower.
Well, and I think what I'm excited about is data is finally getting democratized. I think the HR profession is known for not being great at data, and now thanks to the technology, startups, we have plenty of data about people's skills, about how jobs are transforming, what skill gaps there are in the company, what needs, what sort of strategic capability needs companies have. So all of a sudden, we sit on much more data. Obviously, the question is, what do you do with it,
Mhm.
right? And I'm still to see a tech, and maybe we'll build one together, where it's not just telling company X, look, Meta or whoever you are, in order to grow faster you need more, I don't know, machine learning engineers or AI, or I don't know, coaching. But also really understand what adjacent skills and what drives people's interest and motivation, because again, we humans only learn when there is either a carrot or a stick, right? We have to have a strong motivation to reinvent our careers, to learn something new. And learning is always, from our time in Futureland, we know that learning engagement's always been low. And
Yep.
it's sort of ironic in a moment where we all need to get our stuff together
Yep.
and learn more. The world is learning less and less, and our attention span is getting smaller, right?
I agree, and I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about it because, well, there's loads of things you maybe talk about, but one of which is I was chatting to someone earlier about sort of, the role of AI, and the more you engage with AI, the less engaged you become,
Absolutely.
the lower your recall rates, right? So AI is not the answer in terms of your point around how do you get engaged in learning, right? So in one sense, right? So we've got to think differently about how AI can help us learn, right? On that basis.
Exactly. AI has the ability to get to know us better. So
Mm.
I'm constantly chatting with my AI, and he sort of learn about me how I learn,
Mhm.
right? And that's for me the holy grail.
Have
If
you
we
given your AI a name?
No, no. I mean,
You
it's
haven't got
still,
that far
yeah.
yet.
No, I haven't. I haven't. We don't have that intimate relationship yet. Although I heard that people are falling in love with their ChatGPT friends, right? So no, I think I'm still using it as an assistant. It's bloody useful, especially for someone like me who's independent. But ideally, you would have this, going back to what would be an exciting piece of edtech would be a tool that both identifies skill gaps in real time on the company side, but also identifies what superpowers your people have and how you can incentivize them to learn new things, or skill adjacencies, right? If I'm good at music, how fast will it take me to learn data, right? Or if I've never coded in my life, right? How can you get me to get into coding, because that's what the company needs,
If I
right?
speak multiple languages, how much more likely am I? More propensity is that going to be for me to learn new languages,
Exactly,
as in
exactly.
coding languages. Or I love that. So, and also your point around data, connecting up the performance and MI of the business, and then mapping that to the capabilities and competencies of the current organization to then identify those.
Exactly. Like a living spider diagram, right? That in real time you see where is Justin? How can we move Justin from A to B? Oh, by the way, Justin's role is being impacted. We know that for sure. Which, by the way, right now there's a huge lack of transparency around that,
Mhm.
right? We're fooling ourselves. We're not telling people, that redundancies are on the
We're
corner.
in the fear zone.
Yeah, we should give them that opportunity and say, look, Justin, here's a bit of budget. Here's 6 months for you to sort of reinvent yourself, and then we'll keep you. Instead, it's all about sort of last minutes. There's so many announcements in the media right now, doom and gloom, laying people off without actually giving them a chance to, again, to maybe place them in a different role. So that's what's still happening, and it's happening at speed and at scale. And as someone who spent my life, in HR, I sort of feel sad about it, right? And I wish there was some sort of technology enabler you know, to enable us to do that better.
Okay, so this is your kind of data, kind of unleashing, unlocking, and franchisation of data to then support kind of and deal with some of the challenges. That sounds like a great thesis. There's a business there that we can start
Mhm. Yeah.
together on that one. What else is floating your boat?
I'm not a good coach, and I never got the ICF certification, but I believe coaching and mentorship are such strong tools, and you don't have to be an HR professional to be good at either of them, right? And what I'm excited about, there's a lot of technology right now that's democratizing coaching. So in the past, you had to be a executive to be able to afford a coach, right? Right now, I still believe there is a lot of value in the human connection. I rather be coached by you than by I, right? Because we can have a beer, you know each other, we have a lot of things in common, right? But AI can now augment that and help us become better coaches. And there is a startup, actually, a brilliant lady who set up. It's called Run Yourself, and it's exactly what it does. It's sort of a peer-to-peer coaching
Hmm.
where we are matched based on common interest and skills that we're looking to improve, but then there's AI listening and improving our coaching techniques, but it's still a very much human to human connection. So I think more platforms like this should come, because everybody, even high schools, should have access to good coaching. Because let's face it, there's a lot of the teachers don't really have the time or the skills to coach, or they don't have the industry experience. And imagine if we could scale 1 million mentors,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
With a
As
platform
we've
like
always
this,
said, right?
right?
Take it to at least a billion.
Exactly, exactly. So that, I think that's what I'm excited about. And especially in this sort of VUCA on steroids, where, you don't know what's happening in a couple of years. You need to have that sort of, coach to help you go through the anxiety attacks that you have, especially when you graduate, when you get rejected 15 times, without knowing why, and things like that. So particularly for young people, I love to see that, grow at scale.
What are the kind of skills? What are those skills of the future? And where are the gaps that you kind of see right now, and those gaps, either growing or there's a need to close?
So it's so funny how these things shifted, because a couple of years there was this obsession with tech skills
Yeah,
and
I
software
remember. I mean,
engineering and DevOps, right?
yeah, I remember talking to you about how much you were paying some of
Exactly.
these folks, right? Whereas now they probably can't get a job already.
Exactly. They were unicorns, right? And they could ask whatever they wanted. And I think it was the World Economic Forum has been saying that for a couple of years, that yes, tech's still important, data is still number one in terms of technical skills, but really adaptability, resilience, ability to learn fast, right? Coaching, all of these skills, the human skills, are super important, especially in a world where, again, technology is super democratized, and you need people that just connect the dots and make sense, and really use their judgment, the sort of critical thinking and creativity, hopefully, to make sense of all of this, right? So that's, and we know also in terms of the last 20 years, we went from journalist to specialist. I think we're going back to journalist again, but journalists that have this combine a sort of creativity as well as critical thinking.
Hmm.
You mentioned AI. I worry that ChatGPT is making us both more lazy and more stupid, right? And we sort of stop asking questions and being critical to the output that we're getting. And you know the example of a lawyer in I think in New York a couple of months ago, who didn't even check. if ChatGPT was giving him the right references. We come to that point that we're just taking everything as it is, right? Without using our critical judgment. And I think that's a super important skill that will become. And you teach people critical thinking? Yes, you can. You don't have to be super smart to ask good questions, right? It's just a technique you have to learn.
Interesting. And so you have kids, right?
Yeah.
So how old are your kids?
I have a 20-year-old daughter who studied psychology
Yeah.
at Reading, and I have a 19-year-old son who studies product design.
Okay.
So he likes to make things, which is exciting.
So putting the kind of the anxiety aside, which we all feel as parents, and what are your kind of, when you think about the future of work for them, what do you see?
I think what I see is that, I'm loving the fact that they love learning.
Hmm.
I think it's already a critical skill, right? And they chose to go to uni because they think, it's interesting, it's exciting to actually learn a new thing. They could have gone the apprenticeship way, or they could have just gone into work. And I think it's also great, kids at this age, to have the time, because it's some of the best periods of your life, right? To study, but also have fun, build community, and so forth. But yeah, I worry, as I said, because I have no idea. I mean, how will we need more psychologists? Probably. There is obviously a global pandemic of mental health, right? So probably Mara will have a job if she chooses to go the clinical path.
Hmm.
Will we still need beautiful objects that do the job? I think so,
I hope so.
right? So Julian's building, will be building tools and I don't know, beautiful objects that, they work. I don't know, the next iPhone or whatever, or furniture,
Well,
whatever he
I
will
mean,
choose to
look
do.
at the deal that's just happened with Johnny Ive and Sam Altman, right? He's just bought Johnny Ive's business for multiple billions of dollars to create the post phone device, right? I
Oh yeah,
mean,
I didn't know that.
there we go.
Oh, blimey, I'll read the
You
article.
should tell him
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. I think that
Oh,
will give him even more inspiration, right?
exactly. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And I want to make sure they also have work experience to actually see what work looks like. Because combining kind of practical experience with sort of academic endeavors, I think, is the right formula. And it's very hard for them right now, even to get, bartender jobs. The market, I think, the job market in the UK is quite tight, especially for young people. So I worry about that, but I hope they will keep going. I think they were just saying the other day that they're doing probably 100 applications a day and not getting through bots, right? Where they sort of ask the same questions and do psychometric testing and whatnot
Mhm.
to move boxes a cop. But hey, it again, when it's a very, I feel like the market is right now very employer led, going back maybe 10 years ago. So less jobs, more competition, harder for young people to get that work experience.
Is it a kind of universal kind of truth? Are there different kind of, do you see sort of different nuances depending on different markets? Like, we talk about the US, and, you talk about kind of, coming out of university in the UK with a load of debt and, in some cases limited prospects, right? Well, times that by X in the US, and then we've got, massive kind of underemployment and huge swathes of young people in various kind of countries around the world. And you've got this massive, massive, massive populace in India right now, but India is an exploding, kind of economic opportunity. If you look at it through one lens, what's the kind of global perspective from Kat's,
I
point of
think the
view?
Western Hemisphere is going through this, right? And obviously, we are going in many countries is where we are close to a recession, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, that's where the trend is. And of course, there's still emerging markets where there's more jobs,
Hmm.
and people will shift and follow the jobs, right? And it's very interesting because coming from Eastern Europe, Poland, Romania, you could always see people moving over for job opportunities. Now the trend is, backwards, right? Poland is one of the, best economies in Europe. The Poles are going back, getting paid very well for their skills, having international experience. Same in Romania. There's a very successful sort of even startup scene. There's that trend of kind of getting back, talent back. I even thought a couple of times, should I go? Because why not? I have the advantage of knowing the culture, but also working here. So there is, I think it's different country by country, but I think Western Europe is kind of going through this.
Hmm.
Friends of mine I talk to, in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, they're experiencing the same thing, right? Again, it's not just doom and gloom. There's lots of opportunities. It's just harder and harder, and AI will impact more and more jobs. We don't even know what those numbers will look in a year or so, right? I can't keep up with all the announcements, that I see from different companies, tech companies, retail companies. So it is that trend. I'm not sure if you see that in the Middle East, right? You
Yeah, I
you
mean,
live in a very exciting part of the
I
world.
think it's a very dynamic part of the world. I think they've embraced AI. I think that sort of one of the other things I love about living in the GCC and is the vision and the ambition, and that's backed up with capital. I think the thing that I wish we had more of here in the West and in the UK is more of a vision,
Mm,
because I've always felt that sort of without a vision, then all paths lead there, right? And I crave for there is a vision vacuum in this country, unfortunately for me, and I think many of the challenges that we face all day, every day here, could become those challenges aren't going to go away, but they would feel just much more manageable if there was a route, a road,
yeah.
somewhere that we were aiming to be, and I feel that, when you talk to anybody without going off on my soapbox about it, you talk to somebody, over there, they will all quote the vision. They will quote 2030, or they'll and they're aiming, they have a role to play in that vision, right? And that's a really power, because you've led companies and built companies and been part of companies that have that, and that just makes everything else just feel like, well, how do I get over this, under this, through this, right? It doesn't matter because you've got the vision to aim for. I think that's kind of the thing that I most get excited about over there.
But I think they're also good at execution, right? Because the vision without the plan is
Oh,
just a
well, that's
dream,
it. No, that's
right?
true. That's no,
Yeah,
you're
so
absolutely right. I mean, yeah, look, and I think that sort of, that they make mistakes, but they do execute. There will be a new airport, in Dubai serving 250 million passengers, right? It will have 5 runways, and they will execute, right? That's it. Like you said, the unification of many of their kind of, their government services, it's not perfect, but it's they have the vision, they're executing it. It's I could go on, but it's not my podcast.
but obviously it's buzzing, and I think
It
here we have
is
the opposite
the
of buzzing.
energy,
I don't know what the opposite of buzzing is. I don't know.
and I don't want to do this place down, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just not that. It's not. I'm not going to throw stones, but yeah, that's kind of what I see and what I feel over there for sure. When you're looking at businesses, yourself personally, when you're kind of in role, when you're advising, consulting, whatever. What are your kind of go-to metrics? How do you kind of like measure success today?
That's a great question. I think, especially in the age of AI, you want a combination. You want a great, sort of complementary skill set, and you want people that are very good at the human stuff and people who are very good at systems and
Mhm.
process and technology. And the marriage of the two, I think, is the silver bullet, right? And obviously, teams like this don't just form overnight. It takes leaders to have a good nose for bringing good people together and looking at these connections and making the most of them. And yeah, I think we talk so many years about how culture is the magic sauce, and it is in a way that, as you said, you're talking about the culture in the Middle East, that sort of buzzing culture, that sort of vision driven, that sort of energy, that's the leader's job. And it will be more and more, right? Especially in this world where we live with anxiety, we think AI will take our jobs. You want to have that kind of north star and person that kind of, shakes you up, gives you the vision, gives you the direction, and off you go. And I've seen, especially in startups, this is what the first thing we look at, right? Has the founder got that, right? Have they got this, kind of magic sauce of building good teams and inspiring them and being obsessed about, the problem they're trying to solve and their sort of mission. So that's sort of the number one clue that you're looking at, right? And then obviously you look at the numbers and all the metrics and all that good stuff, but I think that's a power of successful entrepreneurs.
When you sort of then apply that to the opportunities, and we've talked about skills, and we've talked a little bit about geographic markets, and we talked about your kids in terms of what they're studying and so forth. But if we kind of fast forward 3, 5 years, kind of you know, what in your head is what's that world going to look like? And you can answer that question however you like, right? We tell me about sort of like, I'm thinking about things that I've never thought about in terms of opportunity, like um, you know, robotic earth moving equipment that's going to make us ready to go and mine Mars. But how, what are those kind of verticals that our kids are going to be working in? What are the jobs of tomorrow, I suppose, in a sense?
Well, I probably the most exciting thing about AI is the ability to maybe cure diseases, right? Because they will sit on so much data. That's, I think, look, I mean, we're in
Yeah,
2025 and there's still young people in my sort of direct circle who are dying of cancer. This is insane, right? So I think one vertical that I'm very excited about is medical technology, right? And to be, very parochial, femtech is also super exciting because traditionally it's been less investment in female
chronic. Yeah,
health, right? We know much less about, the 50+% of the population. So that's, I think that's an area. And of course, a lot of, ideally, I would love to have a device that augments my brain synapses, right? That makes me, I don't know, learn faster even when I sleep. I would buy that, right?
yeah.
Especially, dealing, when you go into menopause, you're feeling, oh my God, my brain is not what it used to be, right? So I'll definitely invest and buy something like that. So there will be a lot of exciting technology around augmenting, our decision making, improving health, improving agriculture, right? All having, building a more sustainable and healthier life. I think that's, and in terms of the future of work right now, again, if I were to kind of give my 2 cents, designing this HumBot world will be it's completely different. I've done org design and talent processes and whatnot. But right now, really thinking critically, if we kind of deconstruct all our jobs, what parts of this could be done better by AI or augmented by AI versus what will be, 100% human. I think that's an exciting job that HR has, right? And again, I don't think we've even scratched the surface. We're very sort of quick at automating kind of the usual nonsense, which we've done, to be honest, for the last 23, 30 years. Nothing is new. But really fundamentally thinking, okay, can we just stop and maybe redesign work from scratch and think about what parts of my jobs can already be kind of taken away and what parts can I actually spend more time or learn more. That I think that's going to be, something that I'm sure, HR profession and CEOs will sort of think for the next couple of years.
I mean, that's another
Mm.
business that we could start tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because it's not just maths, right? It's a lot of critical
Yeah.
thinking, and it's also human decisions you have to take. Because some roles should probably not be, automated just because we still want some agency and control, right?
Yeah.
And also you're thinking about what we'll be doing with all the time we'll have on our
That's it.
hands.
Enfranchisation,
Yeah,
freeing up, right?
exactly.
Productivity gains.
Exactly. Maybe we all do more gardening. I don't know. Or, doing other things that are not in the job description right now.
Mm.
Right.
Okay, listen, I'm going to ask you a few like quick fire questions, if that's
Oh
all
God.
right.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
if you could download any skill, kind of Keanu wise, into the back of your brain, what would it be?
I think the ability to learn faster. That's definitely, yeah, as
Yeah,
I said, those synapses, they
yeah.
continue to kind of
While you're sleeping,
create, yeah, whenever.
what would you most like to learn? If I could give you one thing now, what would you most like to learn? Like, I mean, you already multilingual, multi-talented, but what would you?
Yeah, I'd love to learn more languages. Actually,
Yep,
I've only got 6, so I
only
love to learn
six.
more complicated ones
Okay.
like Mandarin, for example.
You speak Spanish, right?
Very few, yeah, very few words.
Do you know
Yeah,
how many words of Spanish are actually?
lots.
Yeah,
Obviously, they have such a big
5,000
influence.
plus.
Yeah, here you go. Maybe Arabic. Yeah. I love to learn an instrument. I did a lot of years in piano and hated everything, every moment of it. But now I actually like to take music again,
Yeah.
and it's bloody hard, but I love to do that.
And aside from your partner or your kids, you're taking a drive on some insane scenic route. Who would be your passenger? They can be alive or dead.
Oh God, I think a combination of Marie Curie and Brené Brown. So curiosity and humanity. Yeah,
So we're
the two
talking a
ladies.
hybrid, or we're talking one in the
I
back
don't
seat
know,
and
one
one
in
in
the
the
back
front.
seat. I love to
Yeah.
have them both. I can't choose.
Okay. A piece of tech from the world of sci-fi that you wish you could have right now.
That that device that augments your brains. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, thanks goodness, I'm lucky not to have any sort of. I have all my limbs and everything, and I'm really excited about the technology that's coming, helping people that actually miss a limb. But for me, it would be something related to my brain augmentation.
Love it.
Yeah,
I love it. A fusion
yeah,
computer kind of.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
exactly.
You could teleport anywhere in the world right now at a click of a button. Where would you go and what would you take with you?
Oh God. If it's a person, I'll take my kids. Otherwise, I'll take a couple of books, and I would love to go to Cozumel. I watched this 80s quintessential 80s movies Against All Odds. And there's some amazing scenes shot in Cozumel, so Mexico, yeah.
And you'd go there in the 1980s or you'd go there now?
Um, Maybe in the 90s, 80s, actually.
Sounds
Yeah,
cool.
maybe. I'm a kid of the 80s, so why not?
And this can either be your favorite driving song or as you're walking through the streets of London, what's playing on Spotify?
I'll be such an 80s, kid again, I think will be Phil Collins, and actually, he wrote the soundtrack of, Against All Odds. Yeah, so we're obsessed with Phil Collins.
Right now. He's trending in your
Yeah.
house. And finally, Marvel superpower.
I think Doctor Strange, right? He was the
Yep.
one who was able to manipulate time.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love to sort of manipulate time, stop it every now and again when things get chaotic, and start make sense in my ADHD brain, and then kind of let it go again. So maybe that's the one.
Kat, thank you for an amazing podcast.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was a pleasure.